All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Definitely. Always up for a good deep dive.
This time, we're going to, take a look at the world of AI.
Okay.
We've got this fascinating discussion from a YouTube channel called, it's a Korean channel. It's called Tipinyan Imendan.
Okay.
And it's 3 Korean speakers.
Interesting.
They're talking about the future of AI.
Yeah.
And it gets into some really, really fascinating stuff.
I bet.
They start off talking about this sort of central tension, I guess you could say, with AI.
Yeah.
Which is, on the one hand, all these amazing things it could do.
Right, yeah.
Like potentially, getting rid of bias in court rulings. And then on the other hand, all the risks like deep fakes and, even that kind of Skynet scenario.
I can see how that would be a big tension.
Yeah, so they get into, some specific examples of like how AI could make the justice system fairer.
Okay, yeah.
And, one of the things they point to is, how sometimes it seems like wealthy or powerful people
Right.
it can kind of escape the consequences of their actions in a way that maybe other people can't.
Sure, yeah.
And they suggest that, maybe an AI judge wouldn't have those same biases.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea.
What do you think about that? Could you imagine,
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely thought-provoking to think about a world where we have AI judges. Like, could they really understand the nuances of a complex case?
Yeah.
Like, there's so much more to it than just, looking at the facts.
Yes,
there's human judgment involved.
Right, like mercy and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah, like how do you program that,
Yeah. And then, I guess another really big area that they get into is this whole issue of deep fakes.
Right.
Like, it's not just for fun anymore.
No, it's getting pretty serious.
It's getting really sophisticated.
It is, yeah.
And actually, they bring up some pretty chilling examples.
Oh, really?
Have you heard about the Elon Musk deep fakes?
Oh, for the financial scams? Yeah, I did hear about that.
Yeah, that's just crazy, right?
It is. I mean, it's scary to think how convincing these things are getting.
I know. Like, who can you even trust anymore?
And it's not just the financial scams either. They talked about how Thailand's prime minister almost got caught in a voice phishing attack.
No way.
Yeah, using a deep fake of his voice.
That's terrifying.
I know, it really is. And what makes deep fakes so insidious is that the technology behind them is constantly evolving.
Right.
It's like a digital arms race almost.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast it's advancing.
It really is. The technology they use, you might have heard of GANs.
GANs, yeah.
Generative Adversarial Networks. So basically it's like 2 AI algorithms battling it out.
Oh, wow.
One is trying to create the fake and the other is trying to detect it.
So they're constantly learning from each other.
Exactly, and that's why they're getting so good.
It's mind-blowing, really.
It is, yeah. So, you got those working on the deep fakes, getting better and better, and then the people trying to spot them are always playing catch-up.
Yeah, it's like a constant game of cat and mouse.
Exactly. And, and the stakes are really high.
Yeah, definitely.
Because these things can have real-world consequences.
Absolutely. I mean, they mentioned how, like, fake videos of politicians can be used to spread misinformation.
Right, and that's a huge problem.
And even Brad Pitt his likeness has been used in romance scams.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's wild.
That's pretty disturbing.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder what you can believe anymore.
It does. It's like seeing is no longer believing.
Right.
And it kind of ties into this whole idea of the uncanny valley.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever, watched a movie with, almost human robots or interacted with one of those hyper-realistic virtual influencers, and you get this weird feeling.
Yeah, like a creepy feeling almost.
Exactly. It's like it's so close to human, but not quite there.
Right. It's a little off.
Yeah, and it makes you feel uneasy.
Definitely.
That's the uncanny valley.
It's like our brains are trying to figure out what's wrong.
Yeah, like it's familiar, but also wrong at the same time.
Yeah. I wonder if that'll get worse as AI gets more and more lifelike.
It's an interesting question, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Like, will we ever get used to it?
Yeah. Or will it just get creepier?
Right.
Yeah, it's a weird one for sure.
It is. And, that kind of leads into another big point they make about this whole, like, regulation versus innovation thing.
Right. Finding that balance with AI.
Exactly. Like, how do we encourage all the amazing potential, but also, put up some guardrails?
It's tough. It's a real dilemma.
Yeah, and they really go back and forth on this.
Oh, interesting. What are some of their takes?
Well, some of them are really pushing for strong regulations,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to, like, labeling AI-generated content.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, if we can't tell what's real anymore,
Right.
how can we trust anything?
Exactly. How do we make informed decisions?
I mean, imagine if deepfakes were used to, like, sway an election
oh, yeah.
or crash the stock market.
That's a scary thought.
It is. It is. And so they're saying, we need to have some serious consequences
Mm-hmm.
for people who misuse AI.
Yeah, like real deterrence.
Exactly. Like, make it so risky
Yeah.
that people won't even try it.
Makes sense.
But then, on the flip side,
Yeah.
others are worried that too much regulation will stifle innovation
Right.
and, slow down progress in areas where AI could actually do a lot of good.
Absolutely, like in healthcare or scientific research.
Exactly. And that's a valid concern too, right?
It is. It is. We don't want to hold back progress.
So it's like, where do you draw the line?
Right. It's tricky.
Where do you stand on this?
It's a tough one. I think we need some regulations, just to keep things in check.
Yeah.
But we also don't want to go overboard.
Right.
It's about finding that balance.
It is. It is. And, then the conversation takes a turn.
Oh, where does it go?
They start talking about, like the Terminator movies.
Oh, wow.
That whole, like, Skynet scenario.
Like AI becoming self-aware and turning against us.
Yeah. Like, is that a real possibility?
Well, it's definitely something people are thinking about.
I mean, it makes for a good movie, right?
It does, yeah. It taps into that primal fear we have
Right.
of our creations turning against us.
Yeah, like losing control.
Exactly. But, I think it's important early and to not get too carried away with the doomsday scenarios.
Right. Keep a level head.
Yeah. I mean, AI is still in its early stages.
Right.
We're the ones developing it.
Right. So we have a responsibility to do it right.
Absolutely. We need to build in safeguards and prioritize ethical considerations.
Right. From the very beginning.
Exactly. It's not just about the technology itself,
Yeah.
but also how we use it.
So, I mean, do you think it's possible? Like, could AI actually surpass human intelligence someday?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, it's theoretically possible.
Okay.
We're a long way off from that.
Right.
I think a more likely scenario is
Yeah.
one where humans and AI work together.
Like a collaboration.
Exactly. Each bringing their own strengths to the table.
That's a more optimistic view.
I think it's a realistic one, too. We can leverage AI's power,
Yeah.
for things like processing data
Mhm.
and solving complex problems.
Right.
But we still retain control and make the ultimate decisions.
So it's not about replacing humans.
Right.
But augmenting our abilities.
Exactly. And, they also talk about the potential impact on society.
Yeah, like jobs and things like that.
Exactly. Some are worried about job displacement as AI becomes more sophisticated.
Right, like what happens if machines can do our jobs better than us?
It's a valid concern, but others see it as an opportunity.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, they argue that AI could free us from tedious or dangerous tasks
Okay.
and allow us to focus on more creative or fulfilling work.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing?
Not necessarily. It depends on how we adapt.
Right. It's all about how we manage the transition.
Exactly. And, they also highlight the potential benefits, things like advancements in healthcare or scientific breakthroughs.
Yeah, like AI could help us cure diseases.
Right.
Or solve climate change.
Exactly. There's so much potential there.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It really is. But, it's not all going to be sunshine and roses.
Right. There are going to be challenges too.
Definitely. We need to be aware of the potential risks and address them proactively.
So it's a pretty complex issue with a lot of different perspectives.
It is. And I think that's what makes it so fascinating.
It definitely makes you think.
It does. It's not just about the technology, but about our values and how we choose to use it.
So AI is really a reflection of us, in a way.
I think so, yeah. It's a mirror to humanity.
Yeah, it really is a mirror reflecting all our complexities back at us.
Right. All the good and the bad.
Exactly. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm just kind of like, wow, we covered so much ground.
Yeah, we did.
It's kind of hard to even, like, summarize it all.
I know. Where do you even begin?
Yeah, I mean, what are some of the things that really stood out to you?
I think for me, what's most striking is just how much potential impact AI has, on so many different levels.
Absolutely.
We talked about how it could, make our justice system fairer,
Right.
but also how it could be used to deceive and manipulate us with deep fakes.
Yeah.
And then, even those deeper questions it raises about what it means to be human with the uncanny valley and all that.
It's almost like AI is forcing us to, redefine ourselves.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's pretty profound when you think about it that way.
It is. It is.
Maybe it would be helpful to, just kind of recap some of the key things we talked about.
Yeah, sure.
Just so it's all fresh in everyone's minds.
Sounds good.
So, we started with that idea of AI in the justice system. Could it help eliminate bias? Could we have AI judges?
Yeah, and whether an algorithm could ever truly understand the nuances of human judgment.
Yeah, and then, of course, we had to dive into the whole world in deepfakes.
Right. That was a wild ride.
It's kind of scary how realistic they're getting.
It is, yeah. It's hard to know what to believe anymore.
Yeah, and then there was that whole discussion about regulating AI. Finding that balance between protecting people and not stifling innovation.
That's a tough one. I don't envy the people who have to make those decisions.
No kidding. And then, of course, we had to touch on that, that big fear, the Skynet scenario.
The elephant in the room. Or should I say the robot in the room?
Yeah. Could AI actually become a threat to humanity?
It's a valid concern, but I think it's important to remember we're the ones building AI, so we have the power to steer it in the right direction.
That's a good point. It's not some inevitable fate.
Exactly. We have agency. We have choices to make.
So as we kind of wrap things up here, what's the one thing you want to leave our listeners with?
I think more than anything, I want them to remember that the future of AI is not predetermined.
Yeah.
It's something we're actively shaking every day.
Through our actions, our choices, our values.
Exactly. So, stay informed, stay engaged, and let's work together to create a future where AI benefits all of humanity.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
My pleasure. It was a great conversation.
Always is. And to all our listeners, keep exploring, keep questioning, and until next time, stay curious.